The fourth step of syntopical reading is to define the issue. It's important to realize that anytime you write a research paper, you're writing over something that's not settled, meaning there's not unanimous agreement over the answer. And oftentimes, the controversy around this issue can be for one of four reasons. Could be over the definition of something, over the causation, solution, or the interpretation or meaning. So for this research paper you're doing on the Book of Ruth, maybe you have a conflict over the definition of what is the conflict or what is conflict within the Book of Ruth. Causation, what is causing this conflict? Maybe the solution or resolution of how this conflict is dealt with in the book, or how to interpret the conflict, or what does this conflict mean? What lesson are we supposed to take from it? So those are just some samples of the different areas in which there may not be unanimous agreement in this area. The fifth step is to analyze the discussion, okay? So when you're doing a research paper, you're really entering into a conversation that is around this controversial topic. So because there is no clear solution or answer, it means there's going to be varying opinions, beliefs, and evidence to support those differing views. Especially in literature, there's not going to be a clear right or wrong answer. So how accuracy or correctness is determined when discussing literature is by how well you defend or make your argument. In that line of thinking, your job then as a writer is to explain your answer and why you believe it is the best possible answer that it is, okay? And that's your main job. Your goal is to defend your answer. So kind of off of that line of thought with dialectal objectivity, in other words, respect, what you need to do with syntopical reading is still enter into this discussion and respect those with differing views. Okay, the goal is not to be dogmatic about proving your point, but to show that you've been reasonable, that you've considered all of the multiple different views, and then explain why you believe that your view or your answer and response is still the best one that there is. So using your Graff Birkenstein book and those templates they give you will really help you keep that respectful tone and help weave in the different voices from your sources and have them blend with what you have to say. The last thing I want us to do on syntopical reading is for you to rewrite these steps in your own words. So if you go to the worksheet, you'll find this right here. Go ahead, complete this, pause the video, and then when you're done with the activity, come back. The last part of this class session that I want to talk about is our Graff Birkenstein book, but I will spend a lot more time going over this next week when we get into drafting assignment 2. But for this week, you're being asked to summarize in one paragraph the source that you have found on the Book of Ruth, okay? And I'll explain how to do the research for that in a minute. But a couple points on summaries. One, make sure that your summary fairly represents the views of the author. You can refer back to chapter 2 in Graff Birkenstein, which is Her Point is the Art of Summarizing chapter. And there are some good templates for how to introduce kind of summaries on page 39 and 40. Remember, you always want to give like the author and the title of the article or book as an introduction. You may include quotes in your summary as long as the bulk of the summary is in your own words. So I would put it this way. You may have like one long sentence quote, or you can have a couple little what we call minimal quotes, which are just really phrases that you borrow from your author. And you would still put those in quotation marks. Keep in mind that you're writing this summary for someone who hasn't read the article, right? You're writing this for your classmates and for myself. So we don't know anything about this article. We haven't read it as a group. So keep in mind that you need to provide important details and information to help us understand the main ideas or the evidence in the summary. So keep in mind that picture exercise we did a couple weeks ago, where you had the image of the granola bar, the hand sanitizer, and the candle. All of you came up with very different interpretations for those three images. So keep that in mind, that when you're summarizing an article, you need to explain how do you want us to view those images, how do you want us to interpret them. In other words, how do you want us to interpret the information in this summary? How do you want us to view it? And in order for us to do that, you may have to explain to us what your central conflict is going to be in the Book of Ruth, and how you see this article helping you with your paper. Lastly, include a works cited citation in this forum post so that I can go and find your source and review it and make sure that it's correct. To help you with your research, I have like a 4 to 5 minute instructional video on how to use the Multnomah Library, and you can find that video by going within the worksheet right under here, how to do research. This little video link right down here at the bottom will take you to the video. Before you go and watch that video, a couple things I do want to say about the source that you're going to find for the forum. One, the source must come from the Multnomah Library. And two, this source should help you with assignment 2. So remember that you're required to have 3 sources. Right now you have the Bayless article, the Raskus article, and you do have the Book of Ruth. But it's very possible that either Bayless or Raskus won't help you with your research. So that is why it's good to have this extra article, and you can have more than 3 sources in your paper if you would like. A couple tips I want to give you for the research. When looking for sources, keep your conflict in mind. So don't just pull up every source that is related to Ruth and assume that it'll help you. You want to kind of have a more narrow focus when doing your research. And then 2, read the abstracts as part of your inspectional reading for a source. Especially journal articles, these will have little summaries that will tell you what the article is about. The abstract is just a summary, and it states what the author's problems were, kind of what their research was, and what they hope to prove in their paper. And that's a great place to look to see if an article will be addressing some of the same issues that you hope to address in your paper on Ruth.